Welcome to the Town of Dewey Beach Special Town Commissioner meeting. Today's Friday, June 3rd, 2022 at 4 p.m. or a little thereafter. Apologize for the technical difficulty, and this is being streamed via Zoom. I'd like to convene the Town Commissioners meeting now. I'd like a motion to adopt the agenda, please.
Motion.
Do I have a second? Okay. Second, Gary. All in favor? Oh, go ahead, Gary.
Could I suggest that we move number 6 up to number 3 and renumber from there? I think it would be useful.
I think it's be useful. That's a great idea, Gary.
Okay.
So 6 will move, 3 becomes 6, or 3, 6 becomes 3, and then we'll follow from that. 4, 5, 6. It's a great idea. Thank you, Gary. I forgot you going through that. So with that, can I have a motion to adopt the amended agenda?
Motion.
Paul?
Second.
And second, Commissioner Givings. All right, opening ceremonies. Let's take a moment for a pledge of allegiance. I pledge allegiance
To the flag.
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation,
under God,
God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you for that. From a roll call perspective, I'll, if you don't mind, for ease of sake, I'll read through the screen for the record. On this call, we have Commissioner Persinger, Commissioner Bauer, Commissioner Bauer,
Present.
Commissioner Gibbings,
Here.
Commissioner Jasinski,
here,
Councilor Fred Townsend.
Here.
And from Town Hall, we have Sheena Hall, Jim Dedes, Ashley Sander, and our moderator, Kate Matizak. Is there anybody in the waiting room for public comment, Kate?
Not at this time.
Okay, let me know if anybody comes in.
Will do.
All right, first item on our agenda is discuss and possibly vote to approve resolution to recommend in the nomination and term of service of the Aldermen of the Town of Dewey Beach, Delaware, to the Honorable John Carney, Governor of the State of Delaware. It's kind of a setting this up. We posted the job as for Alderman, as we knew that Linda Madrid had given our notice of wanting to move forward. We received several good candidates, narrowed it down, interviewed the top 3, and both the town manager and I came away with the recommendation that we're proposing to you guys right now, which is Kelly Pettyjohn. To give you some, let me pull up a resume real quick. Why isn't it disappearing for me? The overall reason that Kelly went to the top is that she is or was an alderman for the town of Laurel, and so she's already gone through the confirmation process. She has several years of experience, and so I'd like to put it out there for further conversation or any other questions that the commissioners might have. Commissioner Bauer.
I'd like the motion to approve her as Alderman.
Second.
Fred, you're raising your pen.
Right. So just as a reminder, I'm sure everyone understands, but the question before you is to adopt the resolution, which is to send her name to the governor's office.
Right.
So can you alter your motion?
Oh, that's fine. I think it's fine.
Is that fine?
I think it's fine. Everyone
Okay.
understands what they're voting on. It's the resolution.
Any other discussion then? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. That motion passes, or that resolution passes unanimously. Number 2, discuss and possibly vote to adopt revisions to the investment plan to allow the investment advisor to invest in a wider selection of investments. If we remember correctly, there was an error. We should have had both of these on the agenda last meeting. And there should have been 2 elements: 1, adopting the revisions to the plan, and 2nd is the implementation plan.
And this is,
Go ahead.
this is the, they fit together like hand in glove. So all of the discussion we had in the last meeting is integrated into this. There's nothing additional.
Correct.
Just clarifying as a liaison, sir.
With that being said, conversation or a motion?
I'll just mention one quick thing. It's a little bit awkward that our ordinance is titled investment policy, and it's an ordinance, not a policy. So it lends to some confusion. But this is an implementation plan, which in the future would be a better way to refer to this than as the investment policy, which is, as I said, incorporated in our code of ordinances.
So might it better be worded Town of Dewey Beach Investment Implementation Plan?
Perhaps, yes.
So I'm sorry.
Go ahead, Gary.
I guess I'm not following your point, Fred. I mean, there is a chapter in the town code which is titled investment policy. Are you
Right.
saying we need to change that?
Well, we can't change that.
I don't mean today, but I mean,
Right.
You don't think it's appropriate for that title, a chapter with that kind of title to be in the town code?
I don't think it's something that absolutely must be changed. I think it has led to some confusion in the past when people refer to the policy. And of course, we did have a problem at one point where we were amending the policy and we were unaware, or not this particular group, but a council had amended their policy without regard for what existed in the ordinance. I think it was in part because they thought the policy they were amending was in fact in the code, or wasn't, one or the other. But I think that we can proceed either as is or accept Commissioner Gibbons' suggestion, which would be to remove the word policy from the document that you're voting on now.
Commissioner Bauer.
I think in the last meeting, didn't we changed the policy in the last meeting, right? So now we're just changing the plan that goes with that policy? Did I misunderstand what we did in the last meeting, carrying it to this meeting?
No, that was altering the change of town code, chapter 24, the investment policy, I believe.
Yeah, so we changed the policy already. Now it's the plan.
Commissioner Persinger.
The only question I have is, we refer in the town code, we refer to this implementation plan. And I would just like to make sure whatever title we put on this document that's before us be consistent with the way we refer to it in the town code. So, I mean, I'm fine with Commissioner Gibbons' suggestion if that's consistent with the way we refer to it in the code. So we don't want to go back and revise. the code.
I'm looking at it right now, Gary. Commissioner Persinger.
Gary does fine.
And I'm almost sorry I brought this up. It's just, I think I've probably added to the confusion instead of reducing it. It's just that the fact that we've got a chapter in our code of ordinances that is titled a policy is, I think, potentially lends itself to some confusion. But if the ordinance that you passed in the last meeting refers to a Town of Dewey Beach investment policy implementation plan that you intend to adopt and are adopting today, then perhaps it's best not to change the title of either of them.
I agree that it's unfortunate that you brought this up.
So, Mayor, did you able to access it and look? And
I'm looking at it and I don't quickly see where it refers to the implementation plan.
It's 24-6 in amendments. The investment committee shall review the investment policy and the implementation plan.
Okay,
policy and plan.
so
That
Back to
covered,
the mo-
Fred?
I think it's fine the way it is, and it's probably fine if you remove the word policy. But I think the safest thing to do is to leave it as it has been proposed at the present time.
So do I have a motion to adopt the investment plan as proposed?
Motion to adopt. as
Yeah.
proposed.
Bauer?
Second.
Commissioner Gibbings, all in favor, say aye.
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 All that passes unanimously. Revised number 3 is to review the March financials. Ms. Hall, are you going to be presenting on this?
I guess so, since the town manager is not available.
Mhm.
Basically, we ended up March remarkably well. Our revenues for the month of March were below what we projected because transfer tax, after being so phenomenal through the year, took a drastic drop at the end. But that didn't affect the overall revenue stream. Our expenses were a little bit below. We're above what we expected, but that's because the compensated absences were in there. We have the new website that we paid for and the rental license program. So the end of year projects kind of threw that off. We doubled what we expected to put aside for the set asides for the streets and infrastructure and the capital expenditures, which was great. It really, the transfer taxes really helped the town this year. We ended up with 1.3 million difference to the positive for the end of the year. So we are looking very nice going into this next year. Now it's up to our commissioners to decide how they want to spend that.
Not spend, allocate.
Allocate, excuse me, yes.
I personally reviewed the statements. I don't have any questions from this hall, and I'll open it up to the commissioners if they have any questions for further clarification.
Oh, good job.
Commissioner Persinger.
Yeah, I don't have any question. My concern is I really want to focus on the amount of money that we have for reallocation here, because I think it's important. I mean, we've got an expensive new town hall. I think we're all, I am assuming, sympathetic to establishing a new assigned fund dedicated specifically to a town hall. So the more money that we can legitimately allocate to that fund, I think the better off we're going to be. My not issue, but point is in fact this: while Sheena pointed to $1.3 million as a surplus, that includes other expenses, I believe, including depreciation and expenses which come out of the set-aside funds. So what I think we should be legitimately focusing on here is the surplus from the overall operating budget, which would mean the operating revenues less operating expenses and including set-aside amounts, which totaled $456,000. So when you look at it that way, that leaves us with a surplus of about $1.8 million. Which I think is the figure that we really should be focused on here for potentially for reallocation. The thing I think that needs to be adjusted is to consider what our requirements are under our general fund balance policy. And if I can pull up, sometimes I hate Apple. I don't know how you close a file. I'm using my wife's iPad, which she seems to think is more of a thing that just gets carried around and doesn't actually get used. Okay. So let me pull up the balance sheet.
She's not in the house right now, obviously.
She is. She's on the deck, fortunately.
Oh,
Okay, so the rainy day fund last year was set at almost $1.8 million. It was 1.791. And our unassigned fund balance, which is 15% of our operating expenses, was set at 537,440. So with a higher budget, we have higher requirements both for the rainy day fund and for the unassigned fund. So with this year's budget, our rainy day fund has to increase to 1.972, and the unassigned balance has to increase to 591. We did add some money over the course of the year by taking 5% of daily and seasonal parking revenue. So we added about $70,000 or $80,000 to the rainy day fund on a monthly basis. So the net result here is that I think we need to take out of that $1.8 million somewhere around $160,000 or so. So that would mean, in my view, our surplus should be somewhere around 1.65, just roughly. That's what I would hope that we could consider as a reallocation for the new town hall fund. And then we can, as we have on the agenda, we can have some other decisions about that. But I'd really like to get some basic understanding of what our fundamental numbers are here, so that we understand how much money we have to consider reallocating.
Yeah, if I may comment, I know that this is the next item on our agenda is going further and to go through after the financials. Gary, you and I, we've looked at this. We come to it I hope we can come to it in a common way, even though we're going through it to different paths. The question I would have for you, first of all, fundamentally is, are you, and we'll get, I guess this is part of the next conversation, let me pause for a second. Any other questions on the March financials before we get into the allocation? Okay. Seeing none, is it okay if we move to number 4 so we can start to determine? Is that okay with everyone?
Mhm.
Okay. So when I looked at it from a fund, so this is to the first is to identify or discuss and possibly vote to add a self-committed assigned fund for a new town hall and possibly recommend allocation funds for other assigned from other unassigned or assigned accounts. So remind that when we do have a motion, it is to establish an assigned fund and then possibly the amount that we're going to assign to it, if that's what the motion is. When I looked at the fund balance and I looked at our 2023 budget, what we need to have in terms of the balance of the rainy day fund and what we need to have left as the unassigned, left unassigned, I had that we had approximately 1.3 million available. And that is assuming that we're fully funding the rainy day fund on day one, not doing any allocation on a monthly basis. So we basically taken 589, basically taking the rainy day fund and the required unassigned up to 2564.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes.
I asked the auditors about this prior to the end of the year, and I have already funded the rainy day up to the 1.9 million that it needs.
Right.
Okay.
So that's already done for the full year. They said to do it for March 31st.
Okay, then I am wrong, which I'm glad I am.
Well,
ahead,
I'm not sure that you're wrong. I think, we're kind of looking at it different ways. I mean, you're right that the total of the rainy day fund and the unassigned fund needs to be 2,564,690. There's no question about that. And as Sheena pointed out, she already has 1,975, I think, allocated for the rainy day fund. There's an excess as of March 31 of money in the unassigned balance. That really only needs to be about 591. So there's some additional money there. I think where the question, the difference we have is, I think you're focusing primarily on the net income figure, and the net income figure includes depreciation, and it also includes the effect of expenditures that were taken from the set-aside accounts. None of that should affect the amount, in my view, should affect the amount that we have available as surplus for reallocation. So I think, our thinking we're maybe somewhere $350,000 different. There's about a $350,000 difference in the way we're looking at this thing. Again, I'm trying to focus on operating expenditures, operating funds, revenues versus minus operating expenses. And all the money that comes out of the set-aside account should not be a part of that, nor should depreciation.
let's see if we can just narrow this down because everyone else is falling asleep to our level of detail.
I know.
Yes. No,
Could somebody
I'm kidding.
put
But
the-
if
could
I look
somebody
at
put the financial summary up?
That would be
That'd
very
be
helpful.
here, let me share a screen. Share. Can everyone see my screen?
Oh, that's fine.
Yes.
You can see it. I can't read it.
Have to expand it. Maybe the financial summary might be better.
Well, Gary, the only thing I was getting at, and if you don't mind, just bear with me 1 second, is that the balances under the fund balance, this equity section, are, they balance to what is left. And we've already put the non-spendable, the prepaids and the fixed assets, where the fixed assets agree to the fixed assets up top, and have already taken into account the depreciation. The beach fund has been separated now. We have the review fund, and we've reconciled the other assigned balances. And you're right. Here is the rainy day is 1975. I believe what you said is that 591,000 needs to remain in this unassigned fund to cover that 50%,
Correct.
which means that roughly 90,000 plus the 1,280,000 is available for allocation.
Okay, and my problem is the 1281 that's listed there
Yep.
includes includes the effect of depreciation and expenses from the set-aside accounts. That's where I think our difference is.
But I think
get that
the expenses
you get that
from the
from
set aside accounts have already been adjusted in the balances associated with the set aside accounts.
Yeah, but it's the net income figure that comes from the P&L report that includes the effects of those things.
And I believe the unassigned fund gets reduced by that amount. So because you can't adjust the net income in the financial statements, so you end up moving expenses up into the assigned fund and taking it out of the unassigned fund.
Okay, well, just back up a second. If you look at operating revenues, operating expenses, plus set-asides, you get a difference of about $1.8 million. Do we agree on that?
Yes.
So where did the other money go to then, if we only have 1.3 left?
So,
and maybe let me suggest this. Maybe since everyone may be falling asleep, maybe we don't need to resolve this right now. Maybe we should offline with Sheena, you, and myself, and the town manager, have a meeting and just come to some agreement on what the number should be. Does that make sense?
it does make sense. My only thought from the fund, and I'll stop here and we can move on, is that if the difference right now is I'm saying it's 1.3, you're saying it's 1.8. So, to figure out how to balance that, if we were to do a reclassification, if the March 31st fund balances, as we're looking at the balance sheet right now, are accurate, which I believe they are, and we do a reallocation, which is purely on the fund balance side, and the 678 is going to 591, right? So if you put that at 591 and you move the 90 down to 1381, if you allocated 1.8, you'd have a negative fund balance in other areas.
Well, it's the net income figure that I'm objecting to. That's where I think there's a problem. That's the point that I think we need to resolve.
Okay.
All right.
So if I could just make one comment before we move off of this. It sounds like there's some discussion about potentially setting up a new set-aside account for the new town hall. And from my perspective, I don't want to confuse the public if we make an initial allocation that that's going to be what it is. So I'm kind of almost reticent to really talk about the funding of an account for a new town hall until GMB has given us their initial estimate and we have an idea of what kind of grant money we might get. And then the public has an idea of, okay, we're going to borrow this much, we're going to spend this much. and, we're going to get this much help, so to speak.
I have
Let
a
me stop.
suggestion.
Yes.
Since we know that we had a great year, we're going to have a surplus. Now, whatever that number is, you guys can figure that out. What I'd like the motion is let's put a percentage of it towards the town hall. And I'm just going to throw a number out there for discussion, but let's just say whatever our surplus was, let's use 80% of it towards a new town hall. If we find out we don't need it, I'm sure we'll move it back somewhere else. But, at least we've set it aside. We know what we're using the money towards, something that we're going to need. So, it's a moving target. We're never going to figure it all out ahead of time, but we can at least go with a percentage, and that way we don't have to come back in another meeting and discuss it.
Conversation. Okay, Gary.
I would be fine with that. In fact, I would be fine with allocating 100% of the surplus to the town hall fund, as well as reallocating money from the current capital expenditure account to the town hall fund. It's the major capital expenditure that we have to make. Some of the things on the spreadsheet that Sheena updated for us today, the capital expenditure spreadsheet, some of those things were satisfied through the transfer tax grant that we received from the county. So some of that need has already been handled. If we took as much as $500,000 out of the current capital expenditure account and put that toward the new town hall, that would still leave us in excess of $200,000 in that account. We also will be contributing, since we're contributing 50% of the hotel tax, that should generate another $200,000.
Great point.
So I think, for other capital expenditure needs, I think we'll be pretty well funded. If we took all of the surplus, at least 500,000 of the current capital expenditure budget, and dedicate that specifically to the new town hall. It's the biggest thing that we have on our horizon here. And I think, to have other potential funding sources see us as being serious about getting this thing done. I think making a contribution like that puts a good face on it.
Yep.
So
are you guys okay with a percentage? I mean, that's
well. I think what Gary
would need a second on it.
Well, what Gary suggested is that, just to be clear, potentially a motion to put the full amount of the surplus, less what's required to be left in the unassigned fund, plus 500,000 from capital improvements, into the proposed new assigned town hall fund. Is that correct, Gary?
Yeah, that's correct.
Okay.
I would amend my motion to reflect what Gary just said on it. And we would need a second to.
I will second the amended motion.
Okay. Any other discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. That carries unanimously. The next item on our agenda is to review the self-committed accounts and discuss any possible vote to allocate funds from other assigned. And this was based upon the capital expenditure, and I think Gary, you kind of solved that in the prior one, is as we look through these assigned funds, is there anything that needs to be grossed up? And I think this, from my own perspective, and I'll just throw this conversation, I think the streets and infrastructure, the broadband, like I personally don't see anywhere we'd want to go up or down, but other than for the capital improvements, but I just want to open up to the commissioners for conversation as we start the new fiscal year. No conversation. Gary?
Gary's hands up.
Yeah, I just think we should also recognize that even though we just voted to reallocate some money, that's not cast in stone. We can always make a decision at some point based on conditions that change to make some reallocations again. With respect to streets and infrastructure, I think that's our other very high priority need. I think we need to keep our eye on that. I think the town is doing a really good job of looking for outside sources of money, and we need to continue to do that and to ramp that up as much as possible. There will never be enough money for streets and infrastructure. So, but we are making some significant contributions through the building permits and through transfer taxes, and we just we obviously will continue to do that and continue to look for those outside sources of money.
Agreed. Any other comments? Not seeing any, I don't think we need to make any changes to any of the other self-committed funds. Is that correct? So no, we don't need to motion to move forward. Okay. The next item on the agenda is to discuss and possibly vote to approve the purchase of new homeowner welcome bags as recommended by the marketing committee. So is this an Ashley or a Paul?
We can both tackle it together. What do you think,
Okay.
Ashley?
Sure. If you want to
All
talk
right.
about the bag here, I can do the model of it for you.
Oh, Vanna White.
So Paul, what did Paul freeze? Oh no.
Yeah, I'm here.
Okay.
No, I think
Just
the
give us an
bags look
overview.
good. I think that's a nice touch for when someone spends the kind of money they do to move to town and we make some transfer tax. I think it's a great way to welcome people. We want to make them available to those in the past 5 years when we hadn't done this. Is that right, Ashley? About 5 years?
Yeah, about 5. And we, it was just like a LL Bean tote bag that we gave before. This is a cooler.
Yeah. So I think it's nice. It's a nice gesture from the town for the new homeowner and also making it available for those that want to get it. That didn't happen in the past. We can sell them and, we're not trying to make money on it. I think we can break even on it. So, plus I think some of our businesses may want to donate to what goes inside those things as well. There's a setup cost and then the ongoing cost. So you don't want to do small quantities. You want to do a bigger quantities and pay one setup cost as opposed to smaller quantities. And every time you reorder, you're going to do a new setup cost. So that's why I think, what was the final number we came up with there, Ashley?
So it's about $75, 74 and change, but about $75 per bag. It's a
Okay.
one-time setup cost of $150 and a one-time proof of $15. So
It's not going to move. So it's not the quantity that we order. If it's only 100, it's only $15, and so it's not a lot of money on the setup side.
No.
on the setup side is 165 total and then 75
Right. Okay.
Yeah. It's-
So I'd propose that we do 100. Typically in an average year, we sell 50 homes. That's been about our typical run rate of it. So if we have 100 and, we'll know when to reorder, we might not reorder this again next year, or maybe we will, but we'll see how it goes. Hopefully we have 100 homes that sell, then it's a good problem that have sold, and that would be a great problem for us to have.
Commissioner Persinger.
Yeah, I think it's a great idea. I just have a question. Clearly, I would think businesses would want to make some contribution here to the contents of the bag. What would the town's contribution be to the contents of the bag? I mean, there's lots of information that should be provided, I think, to new homeowners, particularly if they've never owned property in Dewey Beach before. So I'm wondering if the town could, work on some sort of package of really helpful information that a new homeowner should have available to them.
I did create a bookmark that will go inside the bag, and on the bookmark there's a QR code that they can scan with their phone, which will take them directly to the town website, and it's going to be a link specifically for new homeowners, which will have like voter registration forms, just important information they need to know with dates, where to view meetings, how often the meetings that go on monthly take place, and all of that information will be on one specific site that they can have on that bookmark that will be in the bag.
Okay, how about, things like requirements, if they want to renovate their property or something like that, people to talk to, that sort of thing. Okay, that's great. I think that would be very helpful. So I think that's a good addition.
And it's
Could do
lovely
as
that
well.
you can do it by a QR code instead of you having to do lots of different pages and kill trees.
Yeah, it's a good idea.
And this is it. I think it's assumed our logo will be on the bag. Right. Yeah.
It includes the printing of the logo as well.
Okay. And the only other thing is, well, if I think it makes sense. I mean, I've seen the bag personally. It's kind of neat because it does have a solar panel on top to help charge. From if you have an iPhone. It might be something that we also want to add to the website so that, if anybody wants to purchase one, they can. if we don't have any questions, can I have a motion to approve the spend?
Yeah, so this would be 100 bags at $75. We'll round up. So it would be a $7,500 expense.
And I've got a motion from Commissioner Persinger. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second, Commissioner Givings. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. That passes unanimously. The next is the town manager comments. Mr. Dedes, as to step in, do you have any comments to make?
I do. We met, the town manager and I met with GMB Wednesday. We went through some initial concepts that we were interested in and a plan to go forward. We just got some minutes that they submitted to us. We're looking it over. But in a nutshell, we would like to get started in a demolition sometime this fall. They feel that's a doable thing. There's some things that we have to take into consideration. We're now negotiating to get another site survey that deals with stormwater management, which is something that they have to submit to the county and to DENREC. And there's a standard plan, which is, they're telling us is something that is probably we qualify for, and that usually takes 3 to 6 month review, which can coincide with us dealing with the design phase. That will take about 30% of our time. And that includes concept site plan, floor plan options, the preliminary code evaluations, meetings and comments provided by the town, preliminary cost estimates, and schematic design submission. We've asked them for a budget. They know we're looking at a 12,000 square feet. We threw in that potentially I guess it's the fire and rescue, what is it? I'm having a synapse.
Sallyport.
Yes, Sallyport.
That might be considered, but that's not going to be a primary consideration for us. But we wanted to look at that to see if that could be included in the plan. That should take 30% of the planning process and time in general. They think that we can get to this within one to 1.5 years. We're hoping maybe sooner. 60% that starts with the actual site development, starting of the structure, mechanical, plumbing, and so forth. There are some things that we need to talk about, and that deals with how we approach this whole phase, whether we get a design to build, which is probably the fastest way, where the architects and we hire a builder and they work together. And that would go into the construction phase. And Fred is going to look into that to see if that's a doable thing for us. Of course, we would bid out the construction, the contractor. Now, if we do it separately, we may have to get a contractor to come in the design phase to help us out, to scope out costs. And we may have to bid that out to a separate contractor, or we can include that same contractor. Those are some of the decisions we have to make. I will submit, and then Bill will submit the minutes that we had, and we would hopefully, start moving along. I did contact Foresight surveyors this morning to take a look at updating our survey that we already got to meet a topographical survey that deals with utilities and deals with the watershed issue that we'll need to submit. And as soon as we can get some cost estimates on that, depending on how much it is, if it's under 2,000, the town manager can approve. It's over that up to 10,000. The town manager and the mayor can approve. And that's where we are as of date.
Mr. Dedes, have they, for this next phase, and this is what Commissioner Jasinski brought up as part of the meeting, what we were committing to, is there anything that they're asking for an invoice now in terms of this process?
No, the only invoice that, and Bill approved, our town manager approved the $7,000 for the initial.
Okay.
No, we haven't received no invoice, and we've asked for a breakdown of costs, an hourly breakdown, as well as a general breakdown of costs, what they think it will cover for the overall project. We suggested they come in a little high, just to give us a general idea, the worst case scenario. And there are things in this that we have to factor in, such as buying furniture and so forth like that, that has to be included. So we haven't received that yet, but they did say chances are it will be high, but it will come in lower when the actual construction and design phase starts. But we don't have those figures as of now.
So Jim, what is going to be the process? You know, when we pick GMB, we were talking about a couple of different things, like with the garage underneath, without a garage underneath. You know, you talked about the Sally Port, I guess, underneath versus the Sally Port behind it. And you said you hadn't made any commitments in that regard. So have you given them direction, or are we going to have a follow-up or some type of public workshop with them to kind of go through a lot of those things that people talk? I mean, I know Elizabeth was talking about the orientation of the building being north versus south, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, we did discuss the Sally Port, and there was some discussion whether we wanted underground or not. I believe we're not in favor of going underground for the Sally Port, but, you know, we didn't rule it out. We did say that we're going to have a couple of meetings with the town. We're probably going to have a presentation in general, especially when it comes to the overall, I guess, the building itself. Office space in that is going to be down the road. That we'll try to plan out for that as early as possible. But we want to get the scope of the building and the design phase out as quickly as we can. So yeah, we are planning some meetings, and we've asked them to include that in the budget proposal.
Okay.
You know, I don't know if this needs to be said, but I'll say it anyway. You know, everybody on this call is from a commissioner perspective, wants to be a part of this process. So please make sure that we're informed as you're moving forward. Any other questions? Any questions of Mr. Dede's, commissioners? Okay, Jim, anything else?
Well, do you want a very small update on where Verizon is and what we've done so far? We've received 4 applications. They have been, 3 of them have gone through the town's portal into CTS, and they have looked at it. They've responded back for an RFI. We have not heard back from them. The one Collins application for Collins Street was received, but it has not been submitted into the portal as of yet. So we don't know what the status is. I contacted, oh God, it was George McGuckin, who is the liaison for us. And I contacted him specifically for where St. Louis was, because we haven't received anything on that. And there are negotiations right now with Delmarva Power as to sites and what kind of power they can get and not. But so we haven't received an application for that one as of yet. And that's the status.
So there have been no approved relocations?
No, nothing's been approved.
It's unfortunate. Okay. Anything else, Mr. Dedes? Okay.
No.
Police chief is not here. If you don't mind, I'll turn to commissioner comments. Commissioner Paul Bauer.
Yeah. Hey, Kate, can you pop up the what was done down on the Baywalk? All right. So there's the, if you can spread that out a little bit. The sign turned out really good. Don and Barry did an outstanding job putting it up, and it only took them a few hours. It's very secure, and it looks great, and it's gotten a lot of positive feedback on it. So next time you see Don and Barry, pat them on the back for doing great work for us.
Wonderful.
And the second thing was there is some more CTF, community transportation funds, that I'm aware of that we can use for some additional beach mats. I don't know if anything got torn up during the storm, but now would be the time to do the ask for it. You know, maybe we should just get some extra lengths. You know, it's just some food for thought is to make them any longer, to run them north and south along the beach, along the fence, anything along those lines. You know, if we're able to secure the funding from the state, that doesn't cost us anything, and it's an improvement to our beaches. So do you have any thoughts on it? Just drop me a text or an email.
Okay. Is that it?
That is it. We're going to need a new marketing person, new person to chair our marketing team come the fall. But Alex has done a fantastic job filling in here for the last few meetings.
Commissioner Gibbings.
I wanted to thank everybody that pulled together to make a fantastic Memorial Day weekend. The numbers in town were amazing and everybody was happy. And based, I can tell from all the reports, everybody was safe, which is how I'd like for the rest of the summer to continue. Commissioner Bauer, I have been spying on the sign. People are going there to have pictures taken, which is exactly what we intended. I did have some younger people ask me, why was it that color? And when I showed them the coin, they're like, oh, that makes sense. Now I like it. So I'm informing the people that work like at the lighthouse in Rusty Rudder so they can tell people that's why it's that color. And to follow up the idea, the beach mats, north-south, that would make our beach more accessible to folks that are in wheelchairs. And that would be a lovely addition. I don't know where the best place for it to be, but I wholeheartedly support us trying to do that.
My only comment on that is, and I'll get to the ACT meeting that I had, the Association of Coastal Towns, and an update from DENREC, but that'll be, we'll have to coordinate with their plan on replenishing the dunes.
Mhm.
Okay. Commissioner Jasinski.
No comments.
Commissioner Persinger.
Yeah, I just want to thank the town staff for the newsletter and all the communication efforts that they have been conducting. They're satisfying a real need that we've had for a long time. So thanks very much. Great job.
Great. And from my own perspective, I want to echo Commissioner Gibbons. The town did a great job through Memorial Day. We were expecting the worst because of what the nor'easter had done. And the maintenance staff, our maintenance staff is what really enabled the beaches to be open. DENREC, while I love them, they were in other spots, helping other areas of up and down the Delaware shore. So it was really our guys, our maintenance guys, that pulled together, as well as the gentleman that combs the beach in the morning, to help pull the sand in and to build things up. So they did an absolutely incredible job. I do also want to just press upon council. One of the things that we had talked 2 or 3 meetings ago is how do we progress through any changes with the accommodation tax? From a referendum perspective, I'm just concerned that we need to figure out this path, because there's a window, I believe that we have a very short window in order to get anything altered and have a plan. So I'm just throwing it out there, council. I don't want it to fall below. From an Association of Coastal Town meeting, which would be the last item, some of the things that came out of this was that the Delaware General Assembly had basically approved the $5 billion budget this year, the largest budget they've ever had, with a 7% increase, as well as the bond bill increase. As most of us know, the marijuana bill was vetoed by Governor Carney. And they're not expecting anything to change in terms of that being overwritten by the representatives. There was discussions on Delaware offshore from the offshore wind was a major part of this discussion. And it's what the conclusion the group had basically concluded, in which we knew these wind farms are here to stay. The lease grants are done. There's nothing we can do about it. It is going to be offshore and down to the right for us. So it'll affect our visualization of the beach or of the water. But if you have any of your residents that are here that's concerned, there's nothing we can do about it. It's the federal government, the state of Delaware, that's already been done. There was also a bill that allowing homeless to sleep in the cars that may or may affect us. That also has died at the state level right now. It doesn't mean it won't be brought up in the future. Army Corps of Engineer is going to be spending a significant amount of time looking at how to improve how we schedule and how we do our beach renourishments, and so that there's a little more proactivity on their part, not just randomly telling us when it's our turn. They did let us know that we are scheduled, we as in Dewey Beach, as well as Rehoboth, Fenwick, Bethany, and South Bethany, to be done this fall. They obviously don't want it to start in the summer, so as soon as they can, they will start that. Last thing that I'll just say is that DenRec did come out to us and discuss beach replenishment, and wanted to let us know that there is a conversation going on at the state level for the towns to also be able to partially fund that beach nourishment. Now, luckily we are one of those towns that do have a beach replenishment fund, if that ever does come about. They announced this as, while it's currently 65-35 in terms of federal government estates, they're looking at how do we make this a 90-10, and then from a 10%, the state and the municipality splitting it. Now, these are all just early numbers, but what does that mean for us if we're having replenishment every 2 years, if there is a split? And we'll keep the town apprised, as well as our residents, and making sure we have sufficient funds for the foreseeable future in our beach replenishment fund. But there's just more of what's coming down from the state level. With that being said, I have no other comments. Can I have a motion to adjourn?
Motion.
A second. Second, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Have a great weekend, everybody.
All right, thank you. 4:53, 53-minute meeting.